Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Today podcast. Right now we ask the question, is a 1031 exchange for you?
I'm Bob Nelson, real estate investment broker with Pacwest Real Estate Investments.
And I'm Marcia Edwards, residential broker with Windermere Real Estate. We've been getting into the nitty-gritty where you love to be on 1031 exchanges, Bob. Let's talk a little bit about how you approach it and what you do and when you use this tool from your tool belt in investment real estate.
Well, first of all, if a person approached me and stated, I'm about ready to sell something and I'd like to know if a 1031 would be beneficial, do understand I'm not a CPA, I'm not a tax attorney, but I've done this stuff for 51 years. I've worked with the very best people. I do understand the rules, and I understand what the CPA would ask you or a tax attorney. How much taxable gain would you have if you sold a property? So identify, first of all, do you have sufficient gain to go through the process?
This, I want to suggest, is a phone call to you, Bob, right?
It could be a phone call, sure.
You're really generous with information, and I want people to know that.
Sometimes it saves a whole lot of time for both the potential client and for me, because rather than get together for an hour to answer a 2-minute question or a 30-second question, why don't we get to the issue of concern? Then we can identify what are the real problems as opposed to just informational type of gathering and sharing.
I would encourage you to reach out to Bob if this is a consideration for you, just as a possibility. It's probably a free phone call to inquiry, yep. Correct? Okay. So clearly understanding your investment plan, understanding your end game and how you're going to, what the strategies are along the way is a big part of this, right?
Well, yes. For instance, if you're in the first formative years of your investment portfolio, the next transaction that you do is not probably your terminal one, the one that you're going to own forever and ever and ever. You approach it that way, which is fine. That's the way it should be done. It's a serious situation, but do recognize that the typical holding period for a parcel of property is probably somewhere around 5 years, 5 to 6 to 7 years or so, and then you tend to outgrow it. What happens? It becomes more valuable, you have a larger and larger equity, and you start to then realize with that much equity, I could be owning something that's much different, potentially much bigger, easier to manage, whatever it would be, and that causes you to start thinking in terms of adjusting to another type of property.
Once you've looked at the macro, you break it down to just what you're going to do this year. You can call Bob to talk about that. I'm Marcia Edwards, Windermere Real Estate.
I'm Bob Nelson, real estate investment broker with Pacwest Real Estate Investments. You can go to my website if you'd like to know a little bit more about client counseling that I use, 1031guru.com.